Imagine a time more than 4,000 years ago when stories and legends were passed down through tales told around campfires. Gilgamesh, a great monarch from this period, is the subject of one of the earliest legends ever recorded. His exploits and pursuit of something exceptional have left an enduring impression on our planet. Join us as we investigate how the great tale of Gilgamesh affected several tales, including those in the Bible. The semi-mythical ruler of Uruk, a historic Mesopotamian city, Gilgamesh is best remembered as the protagonist of the first epic poem ever composed, the Epic of Gilgamesh. According to legend, Gilgamesh had the priest king Lugalbanda as his mortal father and the goddess Ninsun as his mother, making him a demigod, half mortal, half god. His 126-year rule is recorded in the Sumerian king list, and because of his divine ancestry, he is said to have had superhuman power. Evidence for the historical king can also be found in inscriptions that credit him with building the Great Walls of Uruk. Although Gilgamesh has acquired a legendary reputation, it's generally accepted that he was a real person and the fifth king of Uruk around 26th century BCE. The Epic of Gilgamesh was written between 700 and 1,000 years after the historical Gilgamesh lived. Similar to Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, which emerged around 1,000 years later, the Epic of Gilgamesh initially existed in oral form before being recorded on tablets. This epic tale was a result of the king's profound influence. Later, other monarchs invoked Gilgamesh and connected their lines to his, most notably Shulgi of Ur, who ruled from 2029 to 1982 BCE. He is regarded as a powerful king of Ur, and went so far as to claim that Gilgamesh was his brother and that Lugalbanda and Ninsun were also his parents, elevating the stature of his reign. Archaeologists worked in Mesopotamia in the middle of the 19th century, seeking tangible proof to support the biblical tales from the Old Testament. Instead, they discovered prehistoric Mesopotamian manuscripts on clay tablets that demonstrated how many Bible stories, which until this discovery were thought to be entirely original and the oldest book in the world, had been derived from these far earlier Mesopotamian myths. The Akkadian translation of the Epic of Gilgamesh was one of several tablets in what is known as the Library of Ashurbanipal, and it was discovered in 1849 by the archaeologist Austin Henry Layard in the ruins of Nineveh, one of the later capitals of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. The epic's complete surviving version is this one. The Babylonian author Shinleki Unini recorded it somewhere between 1300 and 1000 BCE in Akkadian. Gilgamesh would have already been a well-known hero when the epic was written. Shinleki Unini drew on the Sumerian sources for the mythical king, of which there undoubtedly would have been many to produce his tale. The tale of Gilgamesh hasn't been recounted entirely since there are several versions of it, and because fresh cuneiform tablets containing newly undiscovered portions are continuously being found. A snake had invaded a tree that the goddess Inanna, the goddess of love and battle, had planted in her garden, and that she intended to use one day to create a chair and a bed, according to the Sumerian story Inanna and the Hulupu tree, from which Gilgamesh rescues the goddess. The female demon Lilitu, also a tree resident, fled after killing the serpent, as did the Anzu bird. Inanna's bed and chair were constructed by Gilgamesh using the tree's trunk, but he kept the tree's branches for himself. Gilgamesh is said to have made his first appearance in this story, and he is already in a position to aid a strong deity. The surviving clay tablets addressed to Gilgamesh in the afterlife suggest that he was also regarded as Inanna's brother and an underworld judge. Inanna was one of Mesopotamia's most revered deities. These earlier Sumerian tales served as an inspiration for the more extensive Epic of Gilgamesh. The narrative opens with Gilgamesh, Uruk's harsh and despotic ruler, who sleeps with every bride before her wedding and is despised by his subjects. These complaints reach the gods, who send down Enkidu, a wild man who lives outside the city walls with animals in the woods, as a counterpoint to Gilgamesh. The animals quit treating Enkidu as one of their own when Gilgamesh sends a prostitute to woo and civilize him. As the wild guy learns how to drink beer, gets dressed, has his hair cut, and receives a club as a weapon, he moves one step closer to being civilized. Enkidu learns of Gilgamesh's oppression and challenges him to a duel. Despite being almost evenly matched, Gilgamesh defeats Enkidu, and the two become closest friends. Gilgamesh and Enkidu, now inseparable, decide to go to the cedar forest and fight the Humbaba. Before engaging in combat with Humbaba, who curses Enkidu right before being decapitated, they arrive in the cedar forest and take in the beauty of the trees. Gilgamesh and Enkidu take down some of the holy trees, construct a raft, and return home along the Euphrates River while carrying Humbaba's head. The goddess Ishtar, or Inanna, notices Gilgamesh when he returns to Uruk and proposes an engagement. However, Gilgamesh declines since he is well aware of how sad her last relationship ended up. The goddess is enraged by this, so she sends down the Bull of Heaven to wreak havoc in the city and eventually get retribution on Gilgamesh. Together, Gilgamesh and Enkidu slay the bull. As vengeance, the gods murder Enkidu because they are angry that the two men slaughtered their celestial bull. As a result of Gilgamesh's intense grief for his friend's passing and desire to avoid suffering the same fate, he sets out on a journey to find eternal life and the purpose of existence itself. Gilgamesh departs from Uruk in quest of Utnapishtim, the lone survivor of the Great Flood that wiped out all of humanity, but for his family, wise men, and the animals he had carried on his boat and spared. Utnapishtim was the sole person to have been granted immortality. He passes scorpion men and gem-laden trees on his quest to locate Utnapishtim before reaching a lovely garden at the limit of the earth and the start of the ocean, where the goddess Siduri runs a bar. According to Siduri, the ferryman for Utnapishtim, Urshanabi, may be located on the coast with his magical stone ones, who informs him that the only way he can cross the ocean is to locate him. Gilgamesh erroneously destroys the stone ones as he hurries to the coast since Urshanabi needs them to cross the sea. They eventually cross the river. When Gilgamesh encounters Utnapishtim, he inquires about how he might avoid death and achieve immortality. Gilgamesh is supposed to become immortal if he can remain awake for 6 days and 6 nights, but he cannot. The second method is that he guards a magic plant, which he likewise fails to accomplish as seen by the snake eating it. Gilgamesh is rowed back to Uruk by Urshanabi after failing to achieve immortality when he records his tale. The Epic of Gilgamesh is a tale that grapples with the meaning of life and the fear, not so much of death, but of meaninglessness. Although inevitably the character of Gilgamesh does not achieve immortality, his quest gives his life meaning, and the fact that we are still talking about him 4,000 years later proves that he did attain immortality. Gilgamesh's struggle with the death of his friend and the questions it raises resonate with every human who has struggled with the meaning of life when faced with death. That's all for this video. We'll be back soon with another informative video. Don't forget to like and share this video. Until next time!